All right, so we finally got the news headliner about the Lakers job, which I know is a very hefty job. Dan Hurley passed on it, 6 years, 70 million. It was very, very difficult. And so joining us here on the show, who covers a lot about the Los Angeles Lakers, and we got a lot of questions to answer from here. But welcoming up on onto the show, Ryan Ward. All right, Ryan, it's on to the next one. After we just got the news on Dan Hurley, I mean, what was the reaction to this? Because to me personally, I think Dan made the smart move and the right move for a few reasons. Because number one, he joked about it. He cannot afford a divorce. Post people. And, you're coming off of a back-to-back national championship in the March Madness tournament. He's probably going to look for a three-peat. But how did you kind of see this really, panning out after he just said, thanks, Lakers, but no thanks?
It was strange, to be honest with you. It's once the news dropped, nobody saw it coming. It was all about JJ Redick and James Borrego's kind of been floating around there, and that was it. And it was more of like, who's going to be on his coaching staff. It was no hint of Hurley or anybody else really that was in serious contention. So it's been a weird offseason already. I mean, it always is crazy for the Lakers, always. I mean, you just expect that. But not hearing anything about this before it went down, and then literally 4 days of mayhem and still not hearing anything, and then everything coming out yesterday was a roller coaster ride, man. And I think we're just gonna hop on another one, and it's just gonna be it's sad, right? Because it's gonna be more of like begging JJ to take the job. When I've heard conflicting reports about that too, he's it rubbed him the wrong way, or he's not digging it now. I mean, who knows? It's just nuts. And then him with the podcast with LeBron, what happens with that if he takes the job? It's just I'm exhausted, to be honest with you. I'm totally tired, dude. That break-in at like 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning that day was just crazy. I was just lucky enough to be not able to sleep that night, and just see the report. I'm like, oh my God. I honestly thought I was dreaming. When you you're on your phone, you fall asleep with the phone in your hand, then you wake up and you look at it and it's something nuts. That's what I thought. And then as I slowly woke up, I'm like, oh my God, this is real. And then all my guys from Lakers Nation are like, hey, we got to jump on a podcast. We got to talk about this and all this stuff. And there was a ton. The sad part is there was a ton of optimism about this, right? Because we went from a first timer with zero coaching experience, which is nuts for the Lakers job, especially. Like Charlotte Hornets, fine. Bring in a guy with no coaching experience, roll the dice. But this is the 17 banners hanging in the rafters, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need a proven guy, especially if you want to convince LeBron to stay and have an AD at 31. It's just a whirlwind, man. And I don't know where they go from here. I honestly don't. I feel like we're going to hear reports until the finals are over when JJ can officially sign his thing. But I don't know. It's exciting, but it's at the same time it's kind of depressing because you feel like it's the end of their winning ways for a while. This could be the beginning of somewhat of a rebuilding process. It just kind of has it feels the same way as when Kobe's reign kind of ended, It's like everybody was coming to the grips with the fact, okay, we got to start looking at young guys. There could be a rebuild here. So I don't know, man. It's been crazy. And I anticipate more craziness.
Yeah, and I can tell you, and as somebody experienced in the West Coast, I mean, I lived in Vegas my entire life, and it is like nothing but 24/7 town. And it's like you get no sleep. Thank God I could at least go to a Taco Bell at 3 a.m. in the morning when I could just, get something in my body to kind of recover from the craziness. But I'm so glad you kind of touched upon that, because I felt like, and I'm going to explain this a little more on the show, but listen, three big brands in major sports: the Lakers, the Cowboys, and the New York Yankees. Whenever you hear the term rebuild, well, people freak out. They're just like, oh, we're a big money market. Why are we even using the term rebuild? I don't even like that word. So in many cases, a retool, they kind of shoot a lot for. And I made a point about this. If you look back into the 2008 New York Yankees, I mean, they were filled with stars: Jason Giambi, Bobby Abreu, Mike Mussina. And it was just like, well, what are you shooting for? To have the most stars on your roster, and then you're finishing up third in the AL East?
I think that's kind of the Yankee way, isn't it?
It is. And so I'm like, I look at that, and I get it. You know, it was the last year of the original Yankee Stadium before they built the new one. But then what did they do the offseason next year? Oh, they retooled. They got rid of all the old. They bring in CC Sabathia, AJ Burnett, Mark Teixeira, and many, many players. They retooled this puppy, and then they win the AL East, and they go to win the World Series. So when I look at this with the Lakers, I'm just like, I'm dealing with LeBron and Anthony Davis, which is already a handful.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with the front offices with Jeannie Buss, which, let me clarify, she is nowhere close to her father. And I mean, and I love, you know, the Buss family.
She'd be the first to admit that, I think.
Yeah. And so when I look at this is a much harder job than people anticipate. I mean, I think of this like with the Dallas Cowboys. You got Steven and Jerry Jones breathing down your neck. Like, I got to make the Cowboys better to where they're making the playoffs and eventually winning playoff games. I mean, I mean, with all this roller coaster, like you said, I mean, this has to be really difficult to really find the right guy for the job to really fill this in to keep the Lakers relevant, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's why I thought that Hurley kind of fit the bill, right? Like, he had the pedigree, you know, 2 back-to-back national titles, arguably the best college coach right now. The problem was it was slim pickings for the head coaching market in the first place, right? I think Coach Bud was the last like prominent guy, and then there's Vogel, who I'm sure if they called, he would laugh and hang up, right? So yeah, I ain't doing that again, dude. I'm done. Yeah, I'm gonna take a vacation and spend this money the Suns are paying me. But yeah, they got to get a guy. Like, and I jokingly said right after, I'm like, well, Coach K's been in contact. Why don't you just give the money to him? You know, he's old as hell, but 77, I think. But I mean, at this point, they're just trying to get through 2 years, I think. Yeah. From the sounds of it, they want to convince. Because I mean, a lot of people have said too, or there's been inklings like, well, maybe LeBron's like, I'm out after all this. You know, like, I don't need to do this anymore. I mean, he's kind of mentioned that, you know, winning's not really the top priority for him right now. He's satisfied with what he's done in his career, and that's fine. You know, he's you know, one of the greatest of all time. MJ is the greatest, by the way. But yeah, it's a because they can't admit they're rebuilding, right? Because then you know, season ticket holders are not going to re-up, and it's one of those, like you said, it's one of those prestigious franchises that always has to be contending, or at least talk like they're trying to, right? Instead of these other ones are just like, okay, yeah, we're obviously rebuilding. It's a rebuilding process. So they kind of got to BS their way through the whole thing. And I think this really took them for a loop, you know? Like I think the reason they fired him was because AD wasn't digging him. He's just like, this guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Get him out, please. And he's the future, obviously. So, yeah, appease him. But then they're just like, well, damn, there's nobody around. There's nobody around to hire. There's no game changer. There's no, like, big name. And like I said, Bud was the last one. But I think they thought if they get Bud, it's like a slightly better version of Ham, right? Same kind of schemes. You know, Ham learned from him. So I get that. I guess that makes sense. But now they're stuck in a rut, and everybody's making fun of them. I didn't think it was like everybody's saying, like, why didn't they throw more money at him? It's like, it doesn't sound like that was the thing with Hurley. like you said, I don't. You compare the two situations, and it's kind of a win-win for him either way. But the chances of him going back and winning a third title compared to going on and winning for the Lakers in the next 2 years, it's like UConn up here, Lakers down here, right?
Right.
Because the West is just stacked, and they already can't compete with the West as currently constructed. And what a coach is going to come in and all of a sudden change all that. There's no Phil Jackson out there. There's no Pat Riley. There's all the really great coaches are taken, and they're not going anywhere. Spoelstra, Popovich, Kerr, Ty Lue. I thought he was their last hope if it didn't work out with the Clippers. Like he just kind of moves over, or they work out some kind of crazy trade or something. But they're stuck in a rut, and I mean, who knows? Like tomorrow we could wake up and there's a whole nother name that comes out. Like Jay Wright was mentioned, the old Villanova coach. I thought that was interesting, but then that's gone dead silent. Like no one is mentioning anything about that. But if I was a insider, I'd be hunting him down, right? Get a quote, get something I can use, just get that name going. But that hasn't happened, which I find really strange. So it makes me think he's not an option.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he quit coaching for a reason. He was coaching like 21 years straight at Villanova. He must have just been exhausted. And he's like 62, I think. So he's 10, 11 years older than Hurley. So I don't know what they're going to do, man. And I don't think anybody knows. Even LeBron,
Yeah, it's just really hard to kind of put the pieces together for the Lakers. But I've said it this way. I mean, when I thought of this, when they were approaching and targeting Dan Hurley, I felt like, is this literally the same feeling that I'm getting when they tried to push for Jerry Tarkanian at one point, and then that didn't end up working? They tried Coach K, that didn't work out.
Yeah, so like the 20-year anniversary of trying to do that, man. It's kind of sad when you throw a ton of money at a college coach for such a prestigious position, and they just say no thanks. Like it is a slap in the face. It's like somebody said, give him the Godfather offer. But the thing is, I saw something today. Somebody said that no coach in LA has lasted more than 3 years since Phil Jackson left.
That's right.
That's pretty telling, dude. That means that is a revolving door, and that's not going to change unless you get some generational guy. And that comes once in a blue moon. It just doesn't happen very often, especially with coaches in today's game where they got to deal with egos and player movement like crazy. It's like it's hard to keep anything together. And then, with the Lakers, they just blamed injuries for the past 3 years or ever since they won the title. So I don't know, man. It's I kind of compared it to it's kind of a crazy comparison, but I think head coaching in the NBA or in any sport really is a thankless job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're like a Phil Jackson or like one of these guys that just come along every once in a while. It's like being a referee, right? Nobody likes them. Nobody agrees with them, but they have to be there, right? They have to run the game. Just like a coach has to run an offense. It has to, tell you guys to play defense. It's just a really hard job. So, and I wouldn't run to do it. That's probably why they're going after a first timer.
Yeah, and that's my thought on it, is because when I look at a prestigious franchise like the Lakers, I'm like, and me personally, I'm evaluating a few things. Is number one, can I deal with the egos I'm already dealing with right now with LeBron and AD? What's my roster shaping like as far as my future, draft and develop? I mean, because I'm looking at it this way. I watched the Pacers. I watched the Magic. I watched a bunch of teams that are young. OKC, they got young players. They're in developments to where they are hitting their primes. And then all of a sudden, it's like, do I have that? Or do I need to make some moves to start bringing in capital? So when I think about this with the Lakers, I'll be honest with you, I like Austin Reeves. But when people put the narrative like he is above a lot of these top talents, I'm like, whoa, timeout. Like, he gives me the shots, but I'm not going to be the guy that I'm going to heavily rely my franchise on a guy like that.
And if you do, you're kind of screwed, I think.
Yeah, so I got to get something up in return. Now, I think my issue with this was, and I look at college hoops, the one and done deal, John Calipari, it don't work. Like you got to start developing these guys, develop them to where they are NBA ready. Because I don't hear about these guys until like third, fourth, fifth year in the NBA, and then they're just like, oh, they're finally in their primes. You got to get like the NFL. We're lucky enough that we're getting content every day because these rookies every year in the draft, they're ready to play. They're ready to win. So I'm like, if college hoops could get on the same page, then maybe we might actually get some more like potential stars like what we may end up seeing. I mean, Anthony Edwards came from a bad draft, but he is potentially building his stardom where he could be a face of the league. Mm-hmm. Is it safe to say the Lakers really got to now be behind closed doors, really critically think about this and say, look, we love our brand, but we need players that are eventually going to be the future of this franchise?
Well, like you were saying, how it's a lot of young teams that have kind of developed, right? They haven't gone on and traded for somebody like Minnesota. I think that's all homegrown guys, right? Outside of like Conley and Gobert, right?
Yep.
But they're not the faces of the franchise. It's Cat and Ant. So that's one example. OKC, all homegrown guys, all of them, and a ton of picks that Presti is stockpiled. And then you got what, Dallas, homegrown except for Kyrie and like PJ Washington. I'm sure a few others, but for the most part, their star is somebody that they drafted, they didn't bring in. I think it's a changing of the guard kind of thing. Mm-hmm. All the old superstars have finally flipped.
Yeah.
The young guys are taking over. The old guys are taking the back seat. No Steph, no KD, no LeBron deep in the playoffs. That's crazy. I don't remember the last time that happened. And I think that's going to be the norm. You're going to see these guys, Ant, Wembanyama. I can't wait to see what that guy does with like a good teammate to play alongside. But that's another interesting thing. What you said about the college game. I think they can get paid now, right? Wasn't there something that just passed?
The NIL now is starting to pay up a lot of players. They're getting some endorsement deals. Oh, yeah.
So there's that. So there's more incentive to stay in college, right? Like they could be like, hey, I'm not going to make a ton right out the gate, or I'm going to land with a really crappy franchise. Why don't I just stay here and make some more money, right? While winning and and getting better and increasing, my draftability, I guess. But then you look at the international aspect too. All the top guys that get drafted are all international guys now. Mm-hmm. Like Wembanyama last year, that Sarr kid, Alex Sarr, he's projected to go number 1. Yep. It's all, and then you look at the top 5 players in the NBA. Yeah, like Luka, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, and then based on, I don't know, who would you say is fifth? I mean, like Shea?
I mean, it's mixtures, yeah. I mean, SGA and a couple other players. I mean, there's some players to plug in. I mean, from the top 10s, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's the NBA is just evolving in a different way, and it's something that we haven't seen before. And I think the Lakers are really struggling to adapt, because what they would always do is they would bring in these young guys, make them names, right, and then trade them. The minute they had value, put them together, get a big name, right? Yeah. That's what they did. That's what they did with AD. I thought the best course of action that year was to keep Ingram, was Randall, Ball, Hart, all these like glue guys and like great role players and potential stars, and sign Paul George. I thought that made a lot of sense. But what do? They mortgage all their youth and their future, send it out for a guy who gets hurt constantly. I mean, AD's great, but he's not exactly reliable in terms of, he's always banged up. It's tough to see him going all the way through the playoffs and winning consistently, right? Mm-hmm. They did it 1 year and they haven't been able to do it since. I mean, they went to the West Finals, but there was no competition in the West last year. Now it's completely changed. Yeah. So it's hard to see that path 5 years down the road, competing against these guys while the Lakers guys get older. And they trade all their picks, so they have no youth. And the young guys are good, but they're not great. Like Max Christie, this JHS kid who didn't prove anything last year. Max Lewis. It's just nobody that kind of moves the needle. So, or that you can use in trades.
Yeah. No,
So
it's
a rough road ahead, man. It really is.
It really is. And my final question to you is because I know covering this team and I know how very exciting yet exhausting it can get,
Gray hairs, bro. Gray hairs. Both sides.
But now kind of coming to this, this fork in the road right now for the Lakers. I mean, in your opinion, would finding solutions for this, because you're dealing with these two players, you're dealing with the pressure right now from the front offices and the ownership, and trying to find the guy. I just think for the Lakers, they just really need to start moving off some stuff. I need to start getting some capital. How would you solve this thing? Is there really like a solution to this issue that could at the very least, hey, we may not be as competitive as many of our teams right now, like Dallas, like, many teams in the West.
Yeah.
But we could certainly get into the middle of the pack to kind of keep us on radar until that move really becomes the crucial move for the Lakers.
You got to trade your stars. That's the only way to do it. You got to start fresh. You can't milk a 40-year-old and a guy who can barely stay on the court. I mean, AD played great last year, played like 75 games or 76 or whatever. But the more I looked at it, the more I saw that they simply couldn't compete with the best in the West. I'm just like, this is over. This is like, but they keep trying to prolong it. And I don't know if it's just to make money and put butts in the seats or whatever, but the second I heard that there was a potential to draft Bronny, and I saw that Bronny averaged like 4 points in college, and he came off the bench, I'm like, what are we doing? That makes zero sense. You would never have done that before. Why are you doing that now?
Which, and to be fair, I mean, the cardiac arrest is very, very scary. That's why I'm hoping if he comes in this league, I mean, I understand vouching, but coming into this league after such a life-threatening injury like this,
right?
Hopefully, I hope for the best of his future that he is everything that people continuously hype him up to be.
Well, I hope he's got a future in basketball. I just think when you mix that kind of nepotism, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And there's already kind of turmoil in the locker room. Okay, picture this. I always say this when people ask me. It's like, picture this scenario, right? They go into the season. Bronny goes to the G League to start. He shows some promise, not like blowing you away. And then you got LeBron. When is my kid coming up? Right. When is my kid coming up? Regardless if they're winning or losing, right? You bring him up and he sucks, right? And he's bad, like obviously bad, like Westbrook bad, like where it's so painfully obvious. The rest of the team's going to turn on him like that.
Yeah. Because
they're all trying to keep their jobs, for one. And for two, why the hell is this kid getting the opportunity that I worked my ass off for? Right. Mm-hmm. It's just a recipe for disaster. The kid literally has to be close, I'd say as good as Austin Reeves to merit being drafted by this team. Yeah. Otherwise, that's a disaster. Unless they put him in South Bay Lakers for like 2 years and you don't hear from him, cool. But I just don't see LeBron doing that, man. I mean, he said he had a quote last year where he said something in the locker room like, "Oh, my kid could start for this team or he could play with this team right now," because it was like during a losing streak or something. I'm like, you're out of your mind, dude. They all say you're a great basketball mind. You say some crazy stuff like that. Like, imagine what all his teammates were thinking. Like, yeah, right. But they're not going to say anything. They're not going to jeopardize their status on the team. I mean, Clutch Sports has kind of run the team the last like 3 years. It's that's another thing. I've never seen an agency take over a team completely. I'm sure there's other examples everywhere elsewhere, like CAA having a ton of agents or players on one team or whatever. But this is different, right? This is where you look at Clutch Sports and you go, this guy's got a good chance to counter the Lakers. It's like Trae Young was Clutch Sports, and there was all these rumors. And then he changed agencies to CAA. And I was like, well, that's over. He's not coming now. No way they're trading for a guy who just said later, right?
Yeah.
There's no way. So it's just, I think you give over too much control like this, and it just gets out of hand, and it clearly has, right? They're going in the opposite direction. So I think you make a drastic change, and who knows? Maybe LeBron does it for him. He's just like, hey, guys, I'm leaving, but maybe I'll do a sign and trade with this said team, and you can get a couple picks back or something. I think he did that for Cleveland. I'm not sure.
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If he did something like that, then, that's the start. And then you ask AD, hey, are you still willing to play here? And what if he says, no, I want to go home. I want to go to Chicago, right? And they get like DeRozan and Caruso or something back. Then you got, it's going to be a crappy couple of years, but you got to start somewhere, right? At some point, they have to start from scratch.
Yeah, 100%. And at least, you can build some hope, and hopefully, this organization, they could get themselves right. But hopefully, again, I mean, I loved watching the Lakers for years, but I'm hoping they figure this out. They get consistent, get everybody up on the same page, especially Rob Pelinka and them. But hopefully they could really figure this out. But Ryan, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for stopping by, taking the time, man. Appreciate you. Again, I'm hoping a big brand. I got some hope. I got some, some capital, and hopefully something that'll get me to love the purple and gold again.
Well, I hope that too. Hopefully I think it's going to be a crazy few weeks, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be one thing after the other. And it's going to be the next thing. And it's like, oh, it's going to be a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting though. But like I said, there's plenty of options, and we'll see what happens ahead. Appreciate you, Ryan. Enjoy the rest of the week, man. Definitely rest up after this one, and we'll see you soon on the next season.
All right, brother.
All right, take care.